My name is Divine Jacobo. I work at Len Benton Juvenile Detention Center. I graduated year 2016.
Hi, I'm Myra Mendoza. I work with Polk County Community Corrections, and I graduated 2018.
Hello. I got it. My name is Kevin Jones. I work for the FBI here in Salem, and I graduated in 2012.
Hello, my name is Sabrina Hunter. I graduated from Western in 2007, so probably the longest. I'm a detective with Salem Police Department.
Good morning. My name is Sgt Ericdson. I'm with the Clatsop County Sheriff's Office. I unfortunately am the only non-alumni on, so that's why they had to put that /career.
What I wanted to start with is, could you please explain to me what you wanted to do when you were in high school? If you can think back and you were in these seats, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I wanted to be a teacher. I loved outdoor school. I joined AmeriCorps immediately after high school because I wanted to teach. And I thought that was the coolest thing, and adult life just sort of drug me a different direction, but initially teaching was my thing.
Okay, I'm the opposite. I did not want to go to college whatsoever. I graduated a year early. I didn't take any college prep classes. I didn't take the SATs, anything like that. So I had absolutely no plans in high school. I was just winging it.
So that's how we're similar in the sense of I knew I was going to go to college. I did not know that I was actually going to finish college. So I had really low expectations going into the whole thing. I didn't have any other plans. I grew up in Southeast Portland, so I was like, well, I guess I can go to college for a little bit until that whatever doesn't work out maybe. But I got here, and then I just kind of took a different path.
When I was in high school, I knew I was very focused in criminal justice and law. I think I was between FBI and attorney, and then, after many years, I started narrowing it down.
In high school, I knew that I wanted to be a police officer. So I came here to Western for the criminal justice program, and I ended up working with juveniles.
So my next point is, what changed your mind? How did you get from, I don't know what I want to do, I don't want to be at college, I don't want to do any of that, or I'm going to be a teacher, that's my lifelong passion. How did you get from that to where you are today?
Okay, I'll start it up again. I was during a shadow, I was getting to experience what adults were like, and parents were pretty god-awful, and I didn't want to deal with parents of students. I love teaching, didn't want to deal with the parents, so it sort of crisped me from that. I walked the wilderness for a while and figured out that I wanted to do something for the community, and my personality, my temperament is pretty straightforward and pretty loud, and so law enforcement seemed like the only place that would accept me, that I wouldn't make everyone cringe. It's awesome.
What changed my mind is I dove right into the workforce after I graduated high school. At the age of 16, 17, I automatically assumed I would be making tons of money. That was not the reality of things. So in talking further with my family has a background in law enforcement. They kind of talked me into trying out some classes at a community college. After taking those, I fell in love with law enforcement.
So I think mine was more of a sense of I didn't have any other options, so I just randomly started. I was crazy enough to apply, and that's kind of the biggest thing that I found, in the sense of there was an internship that the FBI was offering when I was still a student here, because in order to go through the criminal justice program and get your degree, you have to do an internship. So I was crazy enough one day, I was sitting in the library here, and I was on the FBI's website, and I'm like, oh man, I'm on the FBI's website. They're probably watching me right now. And I'm like all weirded out because I didn't know anybody in the FBI. I'd never even spoke to anybody in the FBI, but they were opening it up for interns. And I was like, well, I guess that would be kind of cool. So I applied to that. And then a couple days later, I got an email back from the FBI, and I was like, oh, this is insane. This is crazy. So it just kind of progressed that way. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't an intention, and more so than randomly one day was like, oh, the FBI would be kind of cool. And I just applied, and here I am. So that's kind of how that worked out.
For me, in high school, I took a couple of criminal justice classes. Once I got here to Western, I started taking more focus classes for parole and probation. Back then, I started with just kind of focusing on supervising juveniles, and I did my internship at a juvenile parole and probation office. With time, I just kind of, like you said, started applying, and I actually ended up working now with adults, eliminating the family and parent aspect, so now I don't have to deal with parents as much. But I kind of just trying to switch focus with the focus classes that I took here.
For me, I came here to Western, started taking the criminal justice classes. There were some classes that kind of touched on juveniles, and that kind of piqued my interest. I started working at Linn County Juvenile Detention as a part-time staff in my junior year here, I believe. And I kind of just fell in love with the work. Don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty good at working with juveniles, so it's hard to not like something that you're good at. And then the job kind of just fell in my lap. My senior year, they had a job opening. Didn't necessarily meet all the qualifications, but a lot of my coworkers were like, "Hey, we really like you. We think you would do a really good job. Just go ahead and apply." Lo and behold, I got the job.
So I think what you're hearing here is really interesting in the field of criminal justice is a lot of people come in and they're not quite sure what they want to do. You know that you like crime dramas, you know that criminal justice is an interest for you, but really maybe you don't have it quite nailed down exactly what it is that you want to do. And there are classes that you take that open your eyes to something you didn't realize that you loved, or an experience where you find yourself on the FBI website wondering if you're going to be on a watch list from that moment on. What's funny is in criminal justice, you're going to be doing a ton of research papers, and you're going to be Googling stuff like how to find a weapon for a homicide, like, because you're going to need that for a paper or something. So your search history is going to be really dark while you're in college. So anyway, and opportunity, it presents itself. And I think that's an amazing thing about criminal justice is that you can go in blind and come out with purpose, something that you're super, super good at and that you're really, amazing. Tell me about your jobs. Like, what do you do? What do you love? I mean, just anything that they would love to hear about your jobs specifically.
What I love about my job, I love working with youth. We get kids that come in who unfortunately don't have like basic skills. Like, example, they may not know how to eat food with the utensils. So just teaching them and coaching them that simple skill, and then watching them progress, learn that skill, use that skill, and then seeing them benefit from that skill is pretty amazing to me. It's rewarding to me. And obviously, like, there's more complex skills that we're able to teach and watch the growth. And then really when the kids take the time and they say, "Hey, thank you, like, you made a difference in my life," like, that to me is just like awesome. I get phone calls from time to time. Kids have to jog my memory. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember you," and just having been able to have those short conversations and just the impact that you're able to have on those lives is amazing to me. I feel that the kids who are involved in like the juvenile justice system, like their guardians, their parents, somehow, some way, kind of failed them. Not to completely excuse them from their responsibility, but it's just cool to kind of step in temporarily and set them up for success.
So I work in parole and probation. I supervise specifically right now the domestic violence caseload. The thing I like the most about my job is, so I work with people over a long period of time. It can be anywhere from a year to 3 years, sometimes even longer. People who are being sentenced straight out of court, people who are coming out of prison and are dealing with the parole board. And it's just over time, you get to develop a relationship with them. You get to really know them, know their struggles, know when they're making progress and just really changing their lives. And that is very rewarding. And like, I've also gotten calls even after they're done with supervision just to kind of, they just want to check in and give you like a life update about how well they're doing and maintaining like just a healthy lifestyle, and just seeing the changes in these people's lives. Like, it's very rewarding within itself, and just knowing that like you're also kind of a part of making these changes, it's very rewarding.
I think, so I'm the only FBI Intel component in the Salem RA. So we have, the main office for the FBI is in Portland, but then we have Salem, Eugene, Bend, Pendleton, and Medford. So we have what are called RAs, or resident agencies, in all of those cities. So I'm the intel body on loan to Salem. So what that means is that I spend my time finding people, places, and things. So we have something walk in, it's a new case, and they say, hey, we have to find this person, this thing, this location, and here's the few clues that we have to do it. So I work with the agents and say, okay, well, what do we know? What's the statute that we're trying to fulfill? What are we trying to find evidence of? Which has been very rewarding in the sense of every day is a little bit different. I'm also a member of our FBI evidence response team. So that's kind of like the, what is it, like the CSI or NCI? I don't know if, I forget all the shows, but anyways, it's that kind of stuff. And there's like crime scenes that our team gets activated and we go out and respond to. And we have to collect evidence, and we have to hold it to the highest standards, so that way it's admissible in court, and that way we don't screw up and miss something that we should have found when we were on scene. So I've been doing that for like 6 years, and I've been with the FBI for 11 years now.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm a detective. My unit that I work for is called the Special Victims Unit. I know,
It's like a show.
It's pretty cool. So I specialize in sex crimes and child abuse. So it is a very dark and heavy caseload. That is all I investigate every single day. It's primarily, I work in an office most of the day. I work very closely with DHS. Liberty House is a child advocacy center in Salem. Partnering agencies, we all collaborate together. A typical day for me is I start out with morning meetings. Actually, today I'm going to the Liberty House to watch some forensic interviews of some child victims. I'm also working on a search warrant. So one of your teachers, I don't know where he went, it was talking to me about writing. Writing is super important, you guys. I spend almost all my day at a computer typing reports, typing search warrants. It's daunting, but I love my cases. They are very rewarding. I feel like I'm actually making a difference with kids that have been abused, the very vulnerable population that doesn't have a voice and can't defend themselves.
So, I don't like to hold still very well, so I'm dual certified. I'm certified in corrections and enforcement, so that means I get to be inside our jail, and I also get to turn on the woo-woo lights and drive really fast.
It's fun.
It is honest, I don't say it during the interview process, but it is honest to God one of the funnest parts of the job. Really, I moved out to the coast to do law enforcement because I wanted to work in a smaller community. It took about 3 years. I got to know everyone in our community, they got to know me. So when someone's in crisis, they know me, they can look at me in the eyes and they can say, I know this person's a safe space to be. Even if they've done a criminal act, I might have to arrest them at the end, but they know that I'm going to treat them fairly. That is what I go home with every single day. That is the bread and butter of my existence. I have since moved into a position where I get to teach all of our new deputies that style of law enforcement, and it has been an amazing job. So I love when I see my new deputies, they're out on the road and they're doing something, I'm like, that was me right there. And they're taking an extra moment to chill out and just be like, hey, we can calm the situation down and talk about it first before we have to go to handcuffs. So it's every single day, I'm very grateful for my job.
Any questions from our audience at the moment? If you have something, just pop up that hand. I'm happy to run out to you. I want to know, What from your educational experience here at Western Academy, at any point when you were in the, I'm out of high school, I'm now grown up in this learning world, what was it that you took with you? Like a class that you took, an experience that you had, just something after high school where you were like, I didn't think I was going to use this in my job, but like, man, that really was something.
One thing that kind of sticking out to me is like the ethics class that I took here. Some of the examples they gave, I was like, yeah, right, that's never gonna happen. Like nah, that can't happen. Like no, like a senior coworker would like put me in a tough position where I have to be the new guy and I have to report him. Lo and behold, that happened like, I don't know, 3 months in, and like he was one of our most seasoned staff, and I just had a bad gut feeling that what he had done wasn't appropriate. So I think it was because of like the class that I took and the foundation that that class had kind of instilled in me. Like I had a foundation to go off of and make that leap and report him, go to my supervisor, and talk about what happened.
I took a lot of very helpful classes throughout my criminal justice schooling, but probably, I mean, like it was mentioned before, just the writing within itself, the research papers. I really thought that once I was done with college, I'd be done writing reports and essays, but that was just the beginning. We do a lot of report writing, so definitely having those writing classes and knowing what you're looking for and how to put it together, it's going to be really important because it's going to be required in many different areas of this field.
Not to, I'll add what they're saying, writing. It's really important. We do a lot of that too.
Writing. Yeah, I write a lot too, and it is sound advice all around. So 2 things really stick out to me. One was when you have an advisor here and you're going through the criminal justice program, the advisor is your best friend to try to get into the workforce and your end goal, right? So I had an advisor, Dr. Murphy, he still teaches here, and I remember going and sitting in his office and we're spitballing ideas. And he said, where do you want to apply? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, where do you want to apply? Here's some options. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll apply to like, there. And he's like, okay, is there anything else that you'd want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, like the CIA or something. And he's like, go look into it. I'm like who says that, right? You're like, who says go look into the CIA or the FBI or the DEA? Like, these are all just things that are out there that nobody knows where they're at or how to get in, right? So when I was going through the process with the FBI, one of the hiring components was you had to go get a polygraph, right? A lie detector. So like I went up to Portland, and I did the polygraph, and then I left, and I was freaking out. I'm like, that's it. I'm not getting in. Nope, that went bad. I wasn't lying about anything, but it was just a really uncomfortable feeling. So I emailed him, and I'm like, are you in your office? And he says, yes, come on by. And I sat in his office for like 15 minutes. He's like, calm down. It's okay. Calm down. And I'm like, man, I just don't know what to think about it. So we kicked around, how the experience went. And then he's like, was able to calm me down and said, well, just let me know when you hear back. And then I heard back and I passed. But like having that guidance from somebody who's been in the workforce, who is on my side and helping me, that was really big. But the other thing I learned when I was here, and this is like an overall experience, was time management. It's so underrated, and being able to, I'm not going to say master time management, but learn how to manage my time well has been critical to my like overall mental health, I think, because it's allowed me to go work for the FBI full time, but then also teach online classes for Western in nights and weekends, and it's allowed me to make that balance where I'm not still just going out of my mind because I'm super stressed about everything. So time management, I would learn what you need to do to kind of make sure all your ducks are in a row and that they stay that way, so that way you can enjoy the experience.
I'm going to piggyback on kind of what everybody's talked about. I know we all have been harping on writing. I'll explain to you why writing is important, at least in my job. I heard the same thing. Everybody was like, you need to take writing. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to listen. But it really hit home for me when I started having to write police reports. And then those reports were sent into different agencies, the district attorney's office. They were read in court. Defense attorneys would start picking apart my report writing. And nothing is more embarrassing than standing up on the stand and them attacking you and saying, Officer Hunter, isn't it true you went to college and you can't spell? It's awful. So, so many people read your reports, you guys, and you never know who's going to look at them. And it's also important to your victims to accurately depict what happened to them. So if you're trying to just get through a report as fast as you can before the end of your shift and you leave out key details that could mean that you don't add in all the elements to a crime and, you know, like I said, they go to court and everything, and you don't put that in your report, it could mean that a criminal doesn't get charged with something. Another thing with the Practicum program, Dr. Gingrich is still here, surprisingly, but he was my advisor way back in the day, and he placed me with Oregon State Police. I wanted to be a patrol cop, which I did for many years. So he plugged me in based on my personality. He thought this agency would fit me best. So when I started there, they stuck me in an office, like filing papers. It was awful, and I wasn't getting the experience that I thought. So I was comfortable enough to go to him and say, I'm not getting anything out of this practicum, like, give me some action. So he contacted state police for me on my behalf, and I immediately started diving into their detective unit and on the road, and that's kind of what tied it all together for me, knowing that he cared that much to make my experience here enjoyable and get me the best fit.
Statistics. I'm not going to lie to you. I am not a math person. I did not, when I was forced to take statistics for my degree, I'm like, are you kidding me? I will never, ever, ever, absolutely ever use this. And the second I started trying to work with upper management to change our programs, I found that statistics magically came into play, and because I understood it, I was able to be competent. And I got some really cool stuff changed in our agency. At the academy, you're going to go through scenario-based training, like when you get there, and the scenarios are super obnoxious, and I got into it with one of the instructors. I'm like, I will never in my life have a call that is someone is being loud on a street. This was me being really naive. That is 95% of the calls. So,
Every call, every night.
the first time I got that call, I'm all like, I need to contact that instructor and apologize for being mouthy that day. So the scenario-based, you're going to think they're ridiculous, but they are, honest to God, most of the calls that you're going to get. And there's a reason why the academy does that.
I would love to stand up here and tell you that you have to come to our program and you have to get a degree from Western in order to be successful in criminal justice. And that's what I'm telling you. That's the official word. But the reality is, when you leave high school, there's many pathways. I mean, you don't have to have a college degree to be a police officer or work in corrections. You don't have to have a college degree to work for a victim services organization or be an advocate who works for CASA. It's not required. But you can tell from these experiences that when you go into your career field with something like this, something substantial, a good foundation, it makes a huge difference in your perception of the field, of your ability to do your job, and even just learn the new things that you have to learn. And I guess that's my second question. When you went to your respective positions, and you already alluded to academy here, what is some specialized training that you got, some really cool things that happened after college that you got to experience as you went into your career fields?
So I'm our use of force instructor for our agency. That means that I do a lot of case law work, and I got to talk to everybody and do our force response reviews. There's a really cool program outside that's called Force Science, and they are really, really nerdy. They get really into the weeds on the math stuff and on the science, and it is some of the coolest stuff to explain why officers do the things that they do in situations, and to be able to say that I've been certified through Force Science has been a pretty amazing experience.
Okay, training and opportunities since college, I've had tons. The academy, I'm probably the rare person that loved the academy. I know it's 16 weeks. Everybody describes it as miserable, but I really enjoyed it. I took it as an opportunity to get different perspectives, different ways of doing things, extra training. When I started with my agency, I am a part of our domestic violence team, our cadet unit. I'm a field training officer, or at least I was when I was on the road. I teach report writing. I'm trying to think what else I do. Training. I've been sent out of state to Texas for domestic violence courses. We have special training. Did you guys know you need extra training to interview little kids? Like if a little kid says they've been sexually abused, you know, I don't know if you're forensically trained or not, but you have to go to a 40-hour training in Alabama to interview kids on what happened to them. So the training opportunities are endless. I take webinars almost weekly. I'm just totally a nerd and I like learning new things.
So I think the two main things that I really have enjoyed as far as like additional training has been as part of our evidence response team, you have to go back to Virginia for 2 weeks to do what's called ERT Basic, which that's where they teach you the how and why we go through the steps that we do. We actually have a huge warehouse with houses inside of the warehouse. Let me say it again. There's houses inside of a warehouse in Virginia that, you know, you walk into. There's a classroom on the side where we spent about 2 or 3 days just going through these, you know, the classroom training, and they're like, all right, well, let's go practice. And I'm like, there's probably gonna be tape on the ground, and they're gonna say, stand here, pretend this is a door. Then you walk into this room, and you're in like a neighborhood. It was incredible, and being able to go through that, and like all these houses are furnished and stuff. Anyways, that was really cool. And then I think the other one was learning how to conduct like advanced research, in the sense of like everybody knows how to use Google and try to like, oh, let's find this person and find out what they do and try to build a profile on it, but using the tools that the FBI has at their disposal and use them effectively has been really, really interesting. And you know, learning how to try to master those tools that we have at hand has been really rewarding as well.
So for parole and probation, we also go to the academy. Ours is a lot shorter. We go for 6 weeks. We learn case law, report writing, testifying in court, defensive tactics, a lot of physical training. After that, we, at our own departments, we get assigned a trainer for, I want to say, a year to 18 months. So this trainer is just kind of like your mentor, your guide to help you while you're trying to get settled and learning everything, because there's a lot to learn real fast. And so this is kind of like your go-to person for help and make sure that you're not creating big liabilities with everything you're doing. After that, I mean, throughout every single year, we continue on with our training, to maintain our certification. But we definitely do a lot of training.
Training. It's been very rewarding. I'm somebody who considers myself like a full-time student. Like I continue to like learn, expand both like in my professional career and in my personal life. Like I'm somebody that constantly likes to learn new things. So working with the Juvenile Department, like there's always trainings that you're able to go to. When I first started, there's a detention academy that you have to go through. It's not 16 weeks, it's only a week long, but that was cool. Like you were able to kind of learn the basics. Let's see, LCSI, Life Skills Crisis Intervention. That was a training, that was like a week-long training, and that was amazing. Like the stuff that I learned there, the de-escalation tactics that I was able to learn there, like when somebody's in crisis, like I now know how to just like walk up to them and be able to verbally de-escalate the person. It works nine times out of 10, I would say. But really just the training opportunities that you get are amazing. And I think that's, as you can see, like true across the board.
So I just want to say real quick, we're all getting paid to do this.
Yes.
Like these trainings, like it's not that we're getting sent away and they're like, this is your vacation time, do it on your own. our agencies are saying, we're going to send you, everything's taken care of, have fun, and your paycheck will come. So we get to go play. Like being a grenadier, I get to explode stuff every 2 years, and I get paid to do that. I think it's one of the coolest things.
Yeah, we get paid to go to the range
Yep.
every quarter and shoot free
Yep.
bullets or drive fast. It's fun.
I think we're all getting paid right now.
Yes, we are all getting paid right now. They are not getting paid to tell you this, though. These are their own opinions. I have not slipped them any money under the table to tell you how awesome criminal justice is. All right, from our audience, any thoughts or questions for our panelists? Yes, ma'am. Hold on, I'll come to you.
So what made the click for you? Like deciding that this is what you wanted to do, what or when was that turning moment for you?
I can answer that. I sat in classrooms for years looking at PowerPoints and reading books, and I kind of thought I would like to do this, but I wasn't 100% sure until I was thrown into my practicum, and I got to actually experience what police officers do every day. I had an idea of it, but I didn't know until I actually went out and saw it for myself.
I have a little bit of a different. I served in AmeriCorps. It was an amazing experience. And then I went back out into the civilian world, and I was getting a paycheck. It just didn't feel good to me, like the AmeriCorps thing. So it took me a while to figure out what branch of service was what I wanted to do. And when I found law enforcement, that's where it's at.
How do you personally deal with burnout or overwhelming caseloads?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. My bosses always keep telling me, you need to calm down, you're going to burn out, you need to calm down, you need to burn out. You can't tell, I'm a very excitable person, so it's really hard to tamp my energy down. I have had staff, though, that I can see that. A lot of them is physical fitness. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. You burn out a lot of stress by just doing something physical. It shuts your brain off for a little bit, so you're not thinking about everything that's going on. So the physical fitness part really helps.
I would say like having hobbies, like having things outside of your work field, having friends outside of your work field, having a good balance between those two friends, like friends in the field and then friends also outside of the field. And just knowing, being able to self-regulate, like knowing when you're starting to, I wouldn't say maybe burn out for me personally, but maybe like being really stressed out, like just red flags that are going off in my head, my brain, and just going and doing things that I know that are going to refresh me. For me, that's snowboarding, soccer, working out, hanging out with friends that aren't in the field.
I'm going on my 4th year, so I haven't experienced it yet. But even when I used to have a general caseload, and I got moved over to the domestic violence, which is more of a specialty caseload. So at any point, it's just important when you're feeling stressed or you're feeling overwhelmed to talk to your management so that they can help relieve some of that stress for you and see what can be sorted out. Because there are other coworkers there that are there to help with my departments particularly, which I really like. We really help each other. Whenever someone's just needing extra assistance, the other one just picks up whatever's needed, and then we just kind of help out each other like that. But you have to communicate and let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I think just communicating with, and being honest, I guess, with yourself, and then just having a friend, a coworker, you know, your parents, whoever it is, and just being honest when somebody asks, like, hey, how's work going? You're like, you know, you naturally be like, everything's great, everything's awesome, things are perfect. But then, you know, but then taking a moment and stepping back and being like, okay, actually, it's not really going that great right now. And then just having somebody to chat with about that, I feel like that's been really helpful.
How long did your college and like academy career take before you were able to step out into the field?
So altogether, counting like after high school, from graduation to like when you settled into your jobs, how much time?
So for me, I did my 4 years of college, and I actually had started in the juvenile area. The Monday after graduation, I started working at a juvenile detention center, and I was there for maybe 6 months when my supervisor from my internship had reached out to me about a job opening in the adult parole and probation. So I had submitted an application. I didn't have any experience working with adults, but I remember the email. He said, apply, weirder things have happened. I applied, and that's where I've been since.
I'll be quick and short. Listen to your professors, your advisors. I did that, and I had a full-time job my senior year here. So it was like, I don't know, 3-4 years. Like I had a job my senior year here in school. And that was due to me listening to my advisors, my professors, and the advice that they were giving me.
So my junior year, I had to do my internship that summer. So I did my internship with the Bureau, and then I did that for about a year. And then about 3 weeks until I graduated, I got a call from Portland, one of the recruiters for the FBI in Portland, saying, hey, we're about to post a few jobs. Do you want to know about them? And I said, well, yeah, I do. I'm 3 weeks away from graduation. So the transition was pretty quick, and I graduated here at the stadium on like a Saturday at 1, and then that night I took a red eye to Virginia, and then I showed up at the academy on like Sunday morning at like 8:30 in the morning, and then I started working that Monday.
My story's different. I was in college about 6 years. My community college credits did not transfer, so I started over fresh here. It took me a few years after I graduated college to get a job in my field. After that, when I was hired as a police officer, we did 10 weeks of in-house training, 16 weeks of academy training, and then about 9 months of field training before I was in my own police car solo.
So I went about it a little bit backwards. I started out, I got the job first. I went through the academy and all of my training time, so it took about 12, 14 months for me to get before I was on my own. At that point, I realized that I really needed to get my schooling done. So instead of doing the smart thing, which is what you guys are all doing in this room, I got to do the struggle bus every single night or morning whenever my shift was ending, and doing them both at the exact same time while still going through. So don't recommend that route. It's a little burly.
Have you ever watched a TV show where your job is featured in it and there'd be little things you'd pick at that would bother you a bunch? If so, what would it be?
All right, so that's my number one thing.
How much time do you have, you guys?
Can we just acknowledge, if they were that fast, if the investigations were that fast, and if everything was that clean, if we could call somebody and I could have 17 screens up, and I'm like looking through and like, oh, they ate lunch together at the same table in the 3rd grade, that's the bad guy. If we could do that quickly, we would fight so much more crime. So I think it's like the speed of it, and then what the shows, what they portray the real life is like. I feel like it's some of it's true, but majority of it is kind of a reach.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, you watch a special victims unit show, and it's at best an hour long, and I'm still working cases from 2020 that are still going. So in reality, on a good day, I can wrap up a whole case with a pretty bow and an arrest in like a month. But that's if I'm like hustling really hard. Another thing I would pick apart is that detective women go out to crime scenes in their like stiletto heels and their fake nails, and they have like beautiful long hair, and they never get bloody or gross or anything, and we go out and get really gross and dirty and dive in.
For me, it'd be just how juveniles are depicted sometimes in the shows. Kids are awesome. And then like a funny one for me, it's like when people slap handcuffs on. Like, you didn't double lock them. What are you doing?
You will find as a criminal justice student that you will never see the world the same way again. Any movie, show, anything, you'll be looking at it going like, that's not real.
I would say Cops is fairly real. I mean, that's the most accurate.
Real, but then you're looking at it going like, that was dumb, that was dumb.
Yeah.
So real, but this is something I learned when I went, because I started in corrections and then I went out on patrol. I learned something really quick. I thought patrol was really cool until I did my first week by myself, and I realized that there is a whole lot more boredom going on than not. So that's something you got to prepare yourself for on a graveyard shift, where there just might not be anything happening in your community, and you got to be okay with that, and make it through to the next shift and to the next.
What is the most frustrating part of your job and why?
Upper management and politics. No, the most frustrating part is I see people wanting to do good. I work with people that are either in pretrial. I arrest people. People that have been sentenced. I work with everyone in all the different areas. And there's people who are genuinely trying to make their lives better and just can't find a way to do it. And I wish I could help them out, but I can't be everyone's big brother. So it's very frustrating when I see someone that's sliding and not getting into a better spot, and I know that I'm going to be rearresting them in 2 weeks.
What's been one of your scariest cases you've ever done?
Scariest.
I'll take that. One of my very good friends, her and I worked together on graveyard shift. She was a bridesmaid in my wedding. Like, we worked together for years. Hearing her get shot on the radio and screaming, and I had to go help her and kind of keep my emotions in check because I was freaking out thinking one of my good friends is going to die, and having to kind of change roles and, help render aid and look for the guy that shot her without letting my emotions take over, because instinctively I want to do some awful things to the person that hurt my friend, but I can't do that. So I would say that was my scariest.
Were there any classes you wish you would have taken, or like any interesting classes that helped you in ways you didn't expect, whether in college or high school?
My communication classes, I was originally like, these are going to be fluff, it's going to be super easy. When they were a little bit more challenging than I thought they'd be, and I use them every single day. The communication classes are huge.
I would say I wish I would have taken Spanish.
Yes.
I worked on the north end of Salem for, 5-6 years, and almost every call I went to was Spanish-speaking population, and I can't communicate with them, so I would have to phone a friend to translate for me. So if you guys can get any kind of foreign language or even sign language, that would be very helpful.
If you were to start out as a simple everyday officer, how long did it take for you to get to the job you have now?
7 years. So it took 7 years and that's jumping to a different division and going through the academy all over again. So I've gone through the academy twice.
I'll say this. In this field, you will get out of it what you put in. So if you're willing to work your tail off, you're gonna get what you put into it. I'm a supervisor where I'm at. I'm like 7 years in. There's staff there that have been there longer than I have that applied for the job, but they don't necessarily put in the same effort or work or dedication, etc. And I think that's a big reason why I got the job.
All right, so as we transition, our career panel will hang around and maybe answer a couple other questions while we get up and stretch our legs. I would like to punctuate this panel with the point that Divine made here. You continue to grow and go to school. You never reach a finish line when you're in criminal justice. You find yourself in a position or a detail that unlocks another position or detail or specialized training, and you just kind of continue to go along, developing, learning, and kind of gathering all of these assignments and growth potential under your belt. So to start here and get the good foundation and then build this incredibly awesome structure on top of it that's your career and your life, I think is the point that all of these career panelists are making, is there's awesome stuff that you can do, there's bad points to it, but if you have a strong foundation, something good and solid on the bottom, you can build something really amazing along the top. So panelists, thank you very much for your input. When you've been through like all of your CJ classes, and you don't have to say my classes, okay, wink, wink, but like what classes do you think were like your favorite or that like were really good, like ones that you'd recommend?
Well, I will say Jenny's American Courts class is really cool. Having an infatuation with the court system already probably makes me a little biased, but American Courts was definitely really interesting. And also, I saw that Dr. Aramoto's here. She teaches Intro to Juvenile Justice. You heard her input about that, and that was probably one of my favorite classes that I took in criminal justice. Just because when you take Intro to CJ, you learn about the penal system and the generic buildup of the criminal justice system. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty in juvenile justice, it's so different, and you realize how different kids really are. And so that's what made me want to go into juvenile defense, which is eventually the end goal. So, yeah.
In my courts class, side note, I actually take a real case, the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, and we learn about court structure by watching the case. So we learn about jury selection by watching real jury selection, and we learn about like evidence and opening statements and all that stuff by watching a real case. So we do things in criminal justice where we kind of bring in these things to make it real, so that you're not just reading a textbook that says an opening statement is a presentation of your case. Yeah, you can do that, but it's cooler to watch them.
And that's one thing that I would say is by far my favorite thing about the criminal justice division in general is, as far as real world experiences go, you get all of that. You get all of the in-depth, and you're out there and you're doing the things. But I mean, even in classes, even like Jenny has talked about her previous law enforcement experience, and she's been to law school. I mean, all of our professors have some kind of experience like that. I took criminology with Richardson. It was during COVID, and so a lot of things are spotty as far as classes go. But he has experience with the FBI and is working with juvenile probation and is still continuing to teach classes. So it's things like that that you get their own real world experiences in class too. And so you really see how it plays out, and it's really cool.
So you are in your practicum right now working, and you said you did some stuff at McLaren, and you are taking an ungodly amount of credits every term. How did you get wrapped up? I mean, practicum's required. You have to do that. It's part of your required classes. Everybody has to do an internship. It's part of what you do. But she's gone above and done extra stuff. So how did you even find that or know to do it?
As far as my practicum goes? Yeah. Well, securing my practicum in the first place was a little challenging just because we were in COVID, and I was convinced that I wanted to work in a law firm or with the court system or do something, and a lot of things are currently remote. Even the attorney that I work for now, a lot of our hearings are over Zoom, which is kind of lame, but at least I'm in the office. So as far as actually getting the job, I started 2 terms before I even started my practicum. So I created a template, and it was this email, and it was going to go out to firms everywhere. And I just sent it to a bunch of people, and I didn't end up hearing back from the office that I work at now until a month before I even started. So it's really important to be on top of things, but also especially with criminal justice, because there are so many things that you have to go through as far as securing the position. I had to sign a bunch of contracts of confidentiality. I had to get a few background checks going. So these things take time, and you just need to make sure that you're prepared for that. And so that's what I did. But also, Dr. Melchor, who is the practicum coordinator, he is excellent as far as helping you find a position. And if you even don't know where you want to go, you can talk to him about those types of things too. And so he was really helpful with that. But honestly, I think that I had been thinking about my practicum really far in advance anyways, just because you know that it's required of your degree and you know how many hours that you need. So even going into your freshman year, it's something to start thinking about. And when you're taking your classes, oh, this interests me, maybe I'll want to work in this field for my practicum experience and see if I want to make it a career.
What made you choose criminal justice to major in?
That's a good question. Honestly, it was a toss-up because I knew that I always wanted to be an attorney. So it really was narrowed down to if I wanted to really focus on criminal defense. I've always been passionate about criminal justice, especially restorative justice and penal reform. So when I started volunteering with McLaren, I did that before I came to Western. and I started to really get involved with the juveniles. I think that was really what pushed me. But I also have family that has been in law enforcement and in the military, and so that I would say had an influence. But yeah, I think that it was my experience at McLaren and just already having a passion for it, and the fact that I knew I wanted to do law. So.
Why did you choose Western Oregon University as opposed to all the other criminal justice programs that are out there?
I actually chose Western for its criminal justice program. So I was originally going to go to U of O, but when I decided that criminal justice was really what I wanted to do, I chose to come to Western because I had heard such great things about the program.